one thing for sure that we have to tip our hats to the Cuban government is that they are masters of propaganda. Masters of propaganda. So it was extremely hard being able to taste freedom, like being in Spain for a month, traveling all over Spain, and knowing that the only thing that I had to do was just go into a police station and ask for political asylum. And it was very hard knowing that you have to get back into that plane and go back to prison.
Hello and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. You know, I tell you over and over again, there are wonderful people in this world. People who grasp hold of their opportunities, they see their destiny in front of them, and they say, I'm going to go get it. And they overcome enormous adversity. We have such a man here today. His name is Ignacio Berroa. And Mr. Berroa is a fantastic drummer, which you will recognize immediately. He's just come out with a wonderful new book, and we'll talk about that book in a few moments. First, welcome, Ignacio.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for having me. So it's a pleasure.
It's a great pleasure for me because I read your book, and the book was wonderful, and I have it here somewhere. Okay, so here's our book. This is The Path I Chose, and it's my story, his story. And it's an amazing book. I read it, I guess a day or two after it was published. I got it quickly, and I read it because I knew he was going to be on the show. And you're a product of Cuba. Your family is a distinguished family in music in Cuba for many generations, correct? From what I see, yeah.
That is correct.
And you were raised in Cuba, and you got your passion for music and for the drums while you were in Cuba, and you lived under the Cuban regime for quite a time, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you came across in the Mariel boat lift.
1980. That is 1980. Correct.
So you were right on the edge of everything that was happening there. And one of the claims to fame that I see in here, you played drums with the great Dizzy Gillespie.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so come on, tell me a little bit about Ignacio and what you would like to tell the people here, because I'm sure they're eager to hear you and not me. Tell us your story.
Well, it's like the story of the book. I grew up on a musical family in Cuba. My grandfather used to be a flutist. My father was a violinist. I had another uncle that was a flute player, and they used to play in Cuban bands, like charanga bands. So I got the music was in my house, and also my mom was always playing the radio. So I was into music since I was a kid. Then when I was 11 years old, I got into jazz because my father, who was a jazz fan, brought home 2 albums, one by Nat King Cole Trio, no drums, and another one by the Glenn Miller Orchestra. That was the album that made me put the attention on the drums. And from that moment on, I fall in love with jazz. Something got me, something struck me, and I knew that was the music that I want to play, even though I was raised listening to Cuban music all the time, as well as classical music. Then I went to school to study a violin because my mother wanted me to be like my father and play the violin. But I was not into it. I really wanted to play the drums. But anyway, in Cuba, the musical formation, it is a strictly classical. So not such thing as popular music, not even Afro-Cuban music. Everything was classical. So I went to the school, and then I started playing drums on my own, fitting with when I was allowed, because I was a kid in the school. So when the older guys play, they allowed me to play. So that was the way I got into into the drums, and then I started listening to albums, any album that I was able to get into my hands, because at that time when I went to study was 1964. So by that time, the Castro regime was in power, and the feud between the two governments, United States and Cuba, was already it was 4 years old. The missiles crisis in 1962. So anyway, anything coming from America was not well seen by the Cuban regime.
Yeah.
For that matter, it was extremely hard for people who like jazz to listening to jazz album, because the government used to say that listening to American music was promoting the American ideology.
Counter-revolution.
So, yeah, so it was extremely hard. It was not easy. I always say this: thank God, the island is just 90 miles away from Key West. So when the weather was good, when weather permitted, we were able to listen to radio station from Key West, from Miami. And in my case, and the case of some jazz musicians, when the weather was extremely good, we were able to listen to the Willis Conover Voice of America, the jazz album.
Yeah.
So that's how we got trained playing jazz, or listening to the station from the United States and listening to any record we got into our hands. But there were no contact at all. Like my generation, we didn't have the chance of seeing any American musicians coming to the island. In fact, the reason when Dizzy Gillespie went to Cuba in 1977, that was something out of the world. It was something unthinkable that an American musician will visit Cuba in 1977. How I was able to see him for the first time. So all those stories are in the book.
Yes.
So I went to see Dizzy. I didn't have the chance to meet him, but I remember I was extremely happy that I was able to see that concert. And I remember when the concert was over, I was talking to a few friends outside the theater, and I remember saying, "I can die already because I saw Dizzy Gillespie."
It must be a wonderful.
I had no idea. I had no idea that 3 years later I would be on the same bandstand playing behind that guy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So you were a young musician. According to the book, you were able to become part of bands that, even though you didn't totally agree with the regime's philosophies, they allowed you to travel a little bit. You went to Madrid and to Spain, and there was always that doubt in your mind whether you were going back or you weren't going back, and that kind of thing. And I'm sure that they watched you guys very carefully to make sure that you had to go back.
Well, Cuba is a state police.
Yeah.
It is a suppressive regime, even though a lot of people don't think so, because they believe in the propaganda. One thing for sure that we have to tip our hats to the Cuban government is that they are masters of propaganda.
Yeah.
Masters of propaganda. But it is a suppressive regime. Yeah, it was a state police. Yeah, we were watched. Like when I used to travel, we always were watched by someone, or maybe we never know inside the group who was the people working for the state security department.
Yeah.
So we were always under security. I don't know if that is the correct word. I'm still learning English.
Yeah.
Something like that. And it was not easy to defect. It would have been easy for me, but as I explained in the book, I wasn't able to do so because two people that I love a lot, a great musician from Cuba, and a lady that was like my mother, they were responsible for me coming back.
Right.
So I would have defected, but if I would have done so,
they would have paid for it.
people in trouble.
Yeah.
So since I have always been a man of my word, I couldn't do that because I knew that two other people would get in trouble with the Cuban-born.
It would suffer for you.
So it was extremely hard being able to taste freedom, like being in Spain for a month, traveling all over Spain, and knowing that the only thing that I had to do was just go into a police station and ask for political asylum. And it was very hard knowing that you have to get back into that plane and go back to prison.
So it also says in the book where they listened to some demonstrations and they realized that people wanted to leave, and they opened up the Port of Mariel for people to go. And you experienced doing that. And your cousin was very influential in helping you do that. She came from New York to make sure that it happened for you.
I have been extremely lucky guy in my life, even though I had some bad rides, like losing my mom when I was 10 years old. I was very lucky. Yes, when the Cuban regime habilitated Mariel port for everybody who wanted to leave the island, which was not the truth, because like two weeks later after they opened the port, they immediately gave the orders that people, professionals, doctors, even musicians, professionals weren't able to leave the island.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. Like I said, I wrote in my book, some angels got me out of Cuba. And my cousin who used to live in New York, she was one of my angels. She flew down to Key West. She begged some people to get her on the boat, and she went there, stay a month in the Mariel port waiting for me. And I was lucky to come back on the same boat with her. Because what the Cuban government used to do is you would go to pick up your family, and they will send your family in a different boat, and your boat, they will fill in your boat with prisoners and mental health, people with mental health problems.
Yeah.
So I was even lucky that I was able to do the trip on the same boat that my cousin went to pick me up. And I was also lucky that I didn't have to go that getting any beatings, because the regime organized beating and throwing eggs and so forth and so on to the people that were leaving the island. I don't know if any American or any person around the world can figure what it meant, people throwing things at you and hitting you just for the reason that you just want to move to another country.
Yeah.
It's like an American now that says, I want to move to Italy. We have to go through that because you just want to move to Italy.
Yeah. But that's what happens with a dictatorship and a Marxist regime. You know, I'm sure they got all their training how to do that out of the Soviet Union with Che and the others. They were Marxist. And
of course,
you know, that makes me, when I think about that, I think about all the young people in colleges today in the United States. They're waving these communist flags, and they're boasting about socialism. They're calling for revolution. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what more oppressive it is.
But I don't like too much talk about politics, because you cannot convince people of something they haven't lived.
Right.
But I always tell people, if you read the history, you're going to find out what happened when the Russians built a wall in Berlin, and they divided in one night. They divided families and
for generations.
They built the wall for people not going to the other side, to the free side of the world.
Right.
And in my book, I explain how once I became American citizen, a few friends of mine, they have told me, Ignacio, you are crazy. But I went twice to the East Berlin to see a friend, a Cuban friend, that went there to study, married a German lady, and he stayed on East Berlin. And I crossed to Checkpoint Charlie twice to see him.
You're very
That's
fortunate.
that's my prophet.
I was there in November 1989 when the wall came down, and I know what you're talking about. I was there when the wall came down.
I visited Berlin quite a few times. I saw the wall, went to the museum where they show all the things that people from East Germany try in order to cross the wall. So those people who preach for communism and socialism, so forth and so on, if you don't know that story, you don't know what you're talking about.
No, they don't.
You don't know what you're talking about.
They've been deluded by their professors in the colleges in the high schools. They teach them things that are not true. Like right now, tomorrow there's going to be a big demonstration. All the teachers' unions are going out on strike because tomorrow is May Day. That's the Communist Employees Day, and they want to go out. Pazzo. They don't know how wonderful we have it. So were you in Cuba when the Pope was there?
Say that again?
Were you in Cuba the day that the Pope was there to say Mass in Havana?
When the Pope went to Cuba?
Yeah.
No. I was already there. I was already here. No. When I was in Cuba, my generation, and that is explained in the book, that everything, any religion was kind of prohibited. It was not official, but since the communist ideology has nothing to do with Catholic religion or Afro-Cuban religion or any other religion.
Stayed above all.
If you practice any type of religion, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
It was not prohibited, but it was.
Yeah.
Because in Cuba, education is free, but it is free until you go to the university. And if they discover that you are a Catholic, that you practice Afro-Cuban religion, in my generation, they will force to change that after the crumble of the Eastern European bloc.
Yeah.
They were forced to change the route a little bit.
Yeah.
But during my generation, in the late 60s, 70s, until I left, religion of any time was a no-no.
Yeah.
Was a no-no.
Yeah, they still were opposed to it. They allowed it, but they were opposed to it when the Pope went. And they told the Pope they would make a place for him, but don't expect anyone to come because we are not a religious island. I was there. I went with the delegation from Miami, from the Diocese of Miami. The day that the Pope was there, I was allowed to go in the morning. I had to leave in the evening after the Mass. Only one day I was allowed to be there. But there were 1 million people there. They walked from all over the island to go see that Mass. 1 million people.
Exactly, because many years of suppression,
that's right,
religion suppression as well. So that's why the people, that's why you saw what you saw.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, no, the Pope would have not been invited to visit Cuba.
Okay, so you made your way to New York. You could barely speak English, but you were determined you were going to succeed, and you worked hard, and you made all kinds of great contacts. This book is like reading a who's who of the music industry. It's fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, when you get into this book, there are many, many photographs in here that you will love to see that he's included of his family and the musicians he played with in the different bands. I can't say how happy I am for you, because I know when people have a dream and they are dedicated to reach that dream the way you are, and you achieve it, what ecstasy that has to be.
Yeah. Mission accomplished. And God has been good to me because he gave me the strength to go to everything. Because when I left Cuba, as you saw in the book, for a family reason, my wife and my eldest kid, they stayed behind, and the Cuban government kept them as hostages for 4 years and a half.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know how I got from where I got the strength to learn to speak English, because when I went to New York, I didn't know the meaning of yes. Uh, Trying to find a place in the musical world in New York, and trying to get my family out of Cuba. So I was overwhelmed, all those things. And on top of that, being able to play, because nobody cares about your personal struggle. You have to go to the bandstand and perform. So it was, you said that in 1 minute, but I was 4 years and a half of torture, because it was not like nowadays that thanks God you dial a number in Havana, and if the connection is okay, they answer immediately. Back in the days, you have to put the calls through Canada or Spain, and then since the Cuban government had control of everything, when you call Cuba from here, it was open, because they used to charge like $1.59 a minute. But then when your family called from Cuba to the States, it was just 3 minutes. Most of the time, if you said something that they didn't like, they will cut the conversation immediately. It was torture. Or I remember my ex-wife telling me, "Oh, hold on a second, no, I want you to hear that your son, he's gonna say something to you," and the conversation was immediately cut off. So that type of things that they used to do to me and thousands of Cubans that were separated from our families.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So it was hard in New York.
Very hard.
But as I say, God was good to me. A year after I arrived to New York, Dizzy Gillespie invited me to be part of his quartet. I was able to play with him 6 months after I arrived to New York through my great friend Mario Balza, who recommended me to him. And from that moment on, the ball started rolling. And I started working in New York, doing a lot of sessions and working for other people until Dizzy Gillespie came along. And I went on the road with him for a period of time, because also being from Cuba, being in Marielito, we had no status in the country. We were put in a status called limbo.
Yeah.
And we have to wait 5 years to become residents, with the right to become also citizens. So it was, I was with Dizzy for 3 years. Well, everything's in the book. And then I was forced to leave the band, because Dizzy was constantly traveling. And for me, it was not good. It was a nightmare getting a permit that would just allow me to come back to the country, so forth and so on. But anyway, I became a citizen in 1986, and then 87, he called me back, and I stayed with him to the end. So, can't complain. I had that dream. I never thought I would become Dizzy Gillespie's drummer, but my dream was coming to the United States and being able to play the music that I love, which is jazz. And I was able to do it. And not just with Dizzy, but with other jazz icons as well, as McCoy Tyner, Chick Corea, Clark Terry, Jaco Pastorius. So God has been good to me.
You know it, brother. He has certainly been good to you. He's blessed you from the day you were born. He gave you this rhythm in your head. He gave you the zeal to go and make something happen. He gave you the fortitude to get through it all, because lesser people would have crumbled under that time. You know that.
Yeah, I know.
You know that.
I know. And in many ways, as I explained in the book, I was lucky that the situation that I had then drove me to alcohol, drug, things like that, which it would have been easier for me
Sure.
being in the in the world of music, as jazz music, and also with the situation that I have, my personal situation,
Yeah.
it would have been easy to get an escape by
Sure.
doing alcohol and drugs. And
Yeah.
I was able to stay straight and fight for my family and for myself.
That's wonderful. So you're now remarried. You have a new family, a new wife. You're very happy. That's why you smile so much.
Oh yeah, no, I'm extremely happy, and even I'm just happy that I was able to bring my eldest and my ex. That was such a victory because I never gave up. I never gave up. I
Yes.
was always fighting and trying and fighting and trying until finally, 4.5 years later, the Cuban government let my family go to Panama. That was where I got the visas for them. They were able to go to Panama, and like a year or something later, I brought them to the United States, and they live in Miami. Time flies, man. My son is gonna be 47, 48 years old, and I have a granddaughter that just turned 15.
God bless. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I have grandchildren that are in their 40s.
Wow.
I'm an old man.
But I was extremely happy because I didn't want, on the inner circumstances, my son to stay behind in Cuba.
Yeah.
No way. So I was lucky to get him out of there.
So I know you don't like talking about politics, but you have any comment to make about what's going on now and any hopes for the people that they get their freedom? Or what do you have to say?
I'm going to say it. I have been here for, actually, May 25th is going to be my 46th year in the United States. I have never been into politics like writing letters or making comments because I used to be a big mouth when I was in Cuba. That's why I got in trouble for saying what I think. Then when I came here to the United States, as you know, I had a lot of things to take care of.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I have always been against any suppressors regime like Cuba, like Soviet Union, like former Eastern European bloc countries. I have always been against that system. Cuba needs a change. They have to go because people are fed up with all the necessities, everything they has going through. Another thing, I always has been also against the United States embargo because, in my opinion, that has served the Cuban government to cover their failure.
Yeah.
Everything is not because the American embargo.
Right.
The majority of the things that happens there was because, in my opinion, with all respect, if he said something, Fidel Castro was an arrogant person that he thought that he knew everything. Nobody was able to give him any advice or any suggestion. And he slowly but surely destroyed the Cuban economy. When he got to power, Cuba was a great country.
It was a rich country.
It was a great country that was on the top of many of the top country in South America, with a great economy. So everything about people being illiterate, that he gave everything to the Cuban people. Of course, he won because the previous government was not good.
Well, they were corrupt. They were corrupt.
Yeah, they were corrupt.
Yeah.
But and there were discrimination, same way that discrimination stayed when they took power. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
It was the same thing.
So they told the average people you have to suffer for the revolution. They were living high on the land, weren't they?
Well, the people from the government, they were living exactly what the old people used to live. They took their houses, their cars, so forth and so on, and they were living the good life. And I explained with examples
Yeah.
what I saw as a musician, because as a musician, I was able to play private parties for them, and I used to see how they used to live, that it was not the way the normal people in Cuba we used to live. So it was a different,
Of
they
course.
always asked us for sacrifices
Yeah.
while they were having no sacrifices.
Right.
So
That's the
it
that's
has
the
to
power of the
change.
gun.
Yeah, it has to change. I don't know how it's going to be, but there is one thing for sure. They cannot stay there. It is over. 67 years of oppression and economic failure
Yeah.
it has been enough.
And those
The
poor
Cuban
people,
people deserve something
they
better.
deserve freedom. They deserve a chance to just
Mainly
good life.
freedom.
Yeah.
Mainly freedom. And, and live like we live. I know this system is not perfect. Capitalism is not a perfect system, but it's the best system out there.
That's right.
And I have traveled all
I'm an
over.
example of that. I'm a poor kid from Brooklyn, didn't have anything, went to sleep hungry, went to school with holes in my shoes, and I live a wonderful life because capitalism gave me a chance to free enterprise and work hard and make something. Where else could I get?
That's what I thought people from Cuba had the chance to live. But they need a change.
Right.
That system it doesn't work. Period.
Yeah.
That's why Soviet Union. That's why the Berlin Wall was teared down in 1989.
Yeah. November 1989. November 8th, 1989. Yeah, I was there.
A system was to control everything, even your mind, doesn't work.
Okay, so what's going on with the book? Are you going on a tour to sign the book? Or are you going to be around? But
actually, the book, no, I'm not doing any tour. But I hope I will do something. Those things, Carl, has to be planned like a year in advance.
I know.
To go to libraries and do a lecture, so forth and so on. But what I hope is that people read the book, people who are into music, people who are into being resilient, people who are into never giving up your dreams, and people who want to know about the musical business, how I made it in New York, how was my life in Cuba. They're going to be able to know a little bit about Cuban history, the music history. I take it from there. So I really hope that people read the book, and when they get the chance to go and do lectures and things like that, I'd be more than happy. Absolutely. Right now, I'm gonna record my new album. Oh, I'm involved into putting the music together. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's what it is. So I hope people help me out and support me and buy the book and tell other people about it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, in the show notes, after this is over, in the show notes on the podcast, you're going to find all the contacts, where to contact Ignacio, how to write him, how to thank him, ask him any question you want. You're going to find out how to buy the book. For me, it's a simple thing. You go on Amazon, click, and they send it to you the next day. It's very easy. It's all going to be there, but it's available through other book distribution centers also. It'll all be in the show notes below. Make sure you contact. This man has lived a lifetime and a half, and he's still got that brilliant smile on his face because he knows he's been blessed. He wants to share a little bit of that with you. Rub elbows with him. Tell him you appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Gracias, amigo.
Hey, it was a pleasure, Carl. Thanks for the opportunity, and looking forward to meeting you in person. So, give my love to my friend Ed Pozzoli.
I'm going to do that.
And,
if not tonight, tomorrow night. Who is also a great drummer.
I know he is. So I hope that we'll do it again in the future.
We shall. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you all the time, tell your story. No one can tell it like you do. Make sure you be like Ignacio. Tell your story. Write it down. You can write a book. You can send it information to the local newspaper or television channel. Tell your story, because your wisdom and your experience is essential for the young people to learn. If we don't share with them, they'll never know. Tell your story, and no one can tell it like you can. And I'm going to tell you what I tell you every week. I know it sounds glib, but I'm going to tell you. Get somebody you know today, greet them in a bear hug, a big bear hug. Tell them you love them. Tell them you love them. Maybe the only time they hear those words. And I'm quite sure God loves them also. He loves Ignacio. He loves you. He certainly loves me. He let me live all these years. Old man like me. Tell somebody you love them today. Ignacio, I love you, brother.
All right, man. I love you too. God bless you. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.